to learn over there all day.
And that side room on the right, is that you go up into Misnachim Sion, and then it's that little room where the table is on the right, up the
I think
steps.
so, yeah, I think that's available. Yeah, the table's available, and we'll try to. Okay, Ayin Test Mishnah. So we spoke about that the husband that gets the right to have the profits of his wife's property, and here it talks about where she didn't bring in property, she brought in money. So that's what it's going to say, that he could generate, make something that could generate money. If she got naflu, means that it fell in the Yerusha, whatever it was, she brought it in, it wouldn't make a difference if her father gave her a present, whatever it is, she got money. So the real estate should be bought in order that he could get the profits. So it has to change it into something that could generate profits. Another case, Paris Lushim and Akarka. You look up in Karka, Paris, same idea. So far, that's not a chiddush. The point's going to be because of the next case. If she has a field and also is producing payros, it's producing produce, but it's already detached. When she comes into the marriage, it's already detached. The payros are already detached. So that's considered regular. That's not considered karka. That's considered same as money. Same as money. If she brings in the karka itself, the land produces, it grows. But she bought in the land together with payros. The payros already have been detached, harvested already. So that's considered like money. So if she brings that in to the marriage, so then also that should be translated into something that could generate profit. So you take the payros, it means that the payros is considered the capital. Instead of using the word karka and payros, which means land and produce, we could talk about the capital and the profits. That's really what it's meant over here. So if she brings in money as capital, so we translate that into something that could generate profit. The money doesn't generate. Maybe today, if you invest it, put in a savings account, whatever it might be, but it means you have to get something that could generate profit. Paris Lushin, if she brought in the fruit of the land that's already been detached from the land, so that's considered the capital, and therefore make that into something that could generate profit. Fine. Now the case is, the third case is going to be the complicated case. Paris on the kaka. She brings in land that has pears growing on it and has not yet been detached. It's still growing. So how do you view the pears? The karka is karka, fine. The karka is going to produce more every season. You'll have a new crop. But the pears that are considered still part are on the land. They haven't been harvested yet. The probably is not ripe yet either. So how do you view that? So there are going to be three opinions over here. We have Rav Meir, Chachamim, and Rav Shimon. So Rav Meir says,
I don't understand what the question is. Normally, Herod go to the
right, but this question is this considered Paris? Is this considered profits, or is this considered the capital that she brought in? She brought in a field that has wheat growing and it's still on it. The wheat is still growing on it. Is that considered? Maybe that's considered capital.
But if she brought in Herod,
she brought in the Paris that are
in the other case, if she brought in
a Paris alone. No, that's capital.
He can sell it and buy cargo.
Right.
Why don't you say the same thing here? No matter what, either he gets the parrot or he gets the parrot and he sells and he buys cargo.
No, so the two things he said are very different. He said one thing is that it's considered Paris. If it's considered Paris, then he takes it and he says, Shalom, it's mine.
Okay.
He doesn't have to make any. If you say that it's hers,
buy cargo for the wife.
Right. You make that. That's the question. So Meir says that it's considered.
Isn't it also that the land, if it doesn't have payros, is worth a certain amount, and if it has payros, it's worth more. So when she got it, she got a higher value of property.
That's true, but that's only true if you're looking at it as karka. You're looking at it as capital. So you're talking about that's not so simple. Maybe the payros are considered. Maybe the payros are considered payros, and he takes the whole thing. That's also a possibility, is it not? Maybe the payros are considered the payros that are growing, even though it hasn't been detached. Maybe it's considered detached, and he takes that as payros. He says, "Listen, if it's going to grow payros, I'm going to get the payros. This is payros. It happens to have grown already before."
That's what Mike was saying, right? That's what Mike was saying.
Mike gave both possibilities. He just distinguished between the two possibilities. Let's see it inside and see if any questions afterwards. But Meir says, "Shaman also come here for the payros. We come here for below payros. Well, mostly you look up and payros. We evaluate how much it's worth when it has the wheat growing on it. We evaluate the field how much it's worth if it wouldn't have any wheat growing on it, and the difference, which is really the difference, the value of the payros, but it's not the payros. If you detach the payros and sell it in the market, the payros will be worth more. It means anytime you invest in something, you take a house and you renovate it, you put in $5,000 renovations, then it goes up more than $5,000. It's worth you don't just look at the value of the karka alone, Paris alone. The karka with the Paris is not as much as the Paris is separated. Once it's separated, the Paris are worth more. So you look at the Paris, the Paris growing, you look at it as capital. How do you evaluate the value? How much the field would have been worth with the Paris, without the Paris? You're not looking at it as Paris, you're looking at it as karka. And that's the amount that you invest. Well, most of the difference between the karka with the Paris, karka without the Paris, means how much of the Paris Muchuborim worth, not how much the Paris Lushan are worth. How much the Paris Muchuborim, while they're connected, how much is that worth? And that amount of money you take and you translate that into karka, which could generate Paris. So in other words, America considers the Paris Muchuborim, he considers it as karka. You just have to get the valuation in order to know how much that's worth. But that's what you're considering it capital. But it's a capital which is not going to produce more, right? The land is going to produce more. The Paris are a capital which is not going to produce more. So you have to translate it into a capital which could produce. Simple. He says that it's considered Paris. It's not considered karka. It's not considered capital. It's considered produce, and he's eligible to all the produce. So he comes in with a, what would you say, like a knife, a combine, whatever. It comes with a knife, and he cuts down all of the Paris, and he says, "This is mine." But Lushan, that we already said, no, this is not a chiddush at all. Lushan and a karka, shalom, vidlakav and karka, well, Paris, that we said already before. That was the case before, that if the Paris are already detached from the ground, that's considered capital, and therefore you change that to translate that into something which could generate profit. That's not a chiddush. The point was that the Paris that Amchubar is considered that's considered Paris. The third opinion, which seems very similar to the Chachamim, the Gemara is going to ask what's the difference. Till now we're talking about when the woman comes in, when the wife comes into the marriage. So what's considered Paris that the husband's allowed to take? Whether is it considered karka that it's hers, and he could just generate profit from it. How about if divorced? How do you look at the Paris that are going on the field? I mean, she takes back her field, and there happens to be a Paris growing on. The wheat is growing; it hasn't been detached yet. So Reb Shimon Omer, Malcolm Shofa Kocho B'chnisasa, Hura Kocho B'yitziasa. The place where he's strong in her entry, he's weak in her exit. That means that the mission is going to explain itself. And the opposite, if he's weak when she comes in, he's strong when she leaves. What does that mean? We're talking about this case, about the Paris that I'm chuber. Case that Paris mechubam l'karka, b'chnisasa shalo. That's why she goes like the Chachamim. That when she comes in, it's considered his Paris. It's not much like the Chachamim. Amchubam l'karka shalo. Whatever is connected is considered his. Is considered Paris. So now when he divorces her, and after the divorce, there's land that's growing Paris. Who gets the Paris? So shalo hurakocho b'yitziasa. B'yitziasa shalo. She gets the Paris, which has to be explained maybe. If you say that it's considered Paris, so if it's considered Paris, how come you can't say by the divorce, why can't he say this Paris belongs to me? When she came in with this land growing Paris, so he said that we say the halacha is that it's considered Paris, and he takes the whole thing. So now when he's divorcing her and there's Paris growing on the karka, why doesn't he say the same thing? This is Paris and it belongs to me. So that needs explanation. Shimon needs explanation. This is a case where it's hura kocho b'chnisasa. When she comes in, it's already detached. So then that's considered capital and he doesn't get it. And if there's already Paris solution, it means that's simple. That if by the divorce it was already detached, so surely that was his. If it was detached when she came in, so that's considered hers, and therefore you make capital out of it. But because if he detached the Paris before the divorce, so surely it's his, and then he keeps it. So those were, just to go to the Mishnah again, the Mishnah had one case of money, one case of Paris solution, and then one case of Paris Muchubarim. Money or Paris solution both are considered capital, but it doesn't produce anything. So you have to translate it into something which could produce profit. So for money or for Paris solution, you buy karka which could generate profit. Paris Muchubarim is three sheetas over here. We don't know the difference between the Chachamim and Reb Shimon. Reb Meir says that it's considered capital. The value of the Paris is considered capital, and you have to translate that into something which could generate profit. The Chachamim say that those Paris growing are considered profit, and therefore he takes it. Reb Shimon said that if so, he didn't say if so, he said that these Paris that are mechubar on the way out, if he divorces her, so then she gets it. And that needs
and
explanation.
because it's not right.
It's not ripe over here either. But they wait until it's ripe. Here also, let's say it's not ripe. And what does he say? But this is Paris already. They get married, and there's wheat growing that's not ripe, and she says it's capital. He says,
Because it's coming to him eventually, nobody can use it if it's not right.
so we have to wait until it's ripe.
But
But
if you get divorced,
right,
then he's not entitled to it anymore.
maybe it is,
So
but maybe it's
if you wait
maybe
till it's right, he's divorced already, meaning it ripened during the time that they were divorced.
here it's going to ripen. But here it's going to right now. Why do you consider it Paris? Right now it's not ripe. So why doesn't she say? And the way in when she's getting married, why doesn't she say it's not ripe yet? So it's not Paris, it's not edible. You can't use it now. So it's still,
Because they'll be married when it ripens. And
and
he's entitled to all,
therefore that's when he's going to get it.
yeah, he's entitled to all the ripe fruits.
So I think the Gemara is going to say similar to what you're saying. Maybe just explanation, is how to word it exactly. For Shimon, the Gemara is going to say, it seems the Gemara is not going to explain. The Gemara is going to say that they're arguing it. That one would say that even on the way out, also he gets it, and that's the machlok is going on. So it could be the point that Mike is saying that you don't till it's ripe, it doesn't have an identity. That's what Shimon seems to say. Shimon seems to say that it doesn't have identity till it's ripe. So therefore, on the way in, when does it get identity? When it's ripe, and then he gets the Paris. You don't look at it till now.
Right.
And on the way out, you also don't. He can't say it's mine because it doesn't have identity yet. That's what the Gemara means. And the Chachamim say that it's considered Paris already now, and therefore on the way in he gets it, on the way out he gets it. The Gemara starts Pshita Aro Bati Aro. So Rashi, the first two lines, Rashi says that it's a different kind of a sugya. It means it's not exactly the sugya we're talking about in our Mishnah. It is and it's not. What if they get married and they want to take the capital and buy something that should generate money? You had the money, either she bought in Kesef or she bought in Paris Kushin. It's kind of a capital that doesn't produce. So now you want to translate it into something that produces. So the Mishnah said, Dilach ben Karka. Now there's an issue between the husband and the wife, a choice of buying land or buying houses. Which one is a better investment? So Rashi learns that all the Gemara is going to have 4 examples, all in blue over here, Arabati, Bati Bedikli, Dikli Vilni, Ilni Begufni, 4 examples of 2 choices of buying something. Rashi says in all the cases, the choice is we have something which is going to be more profitable, which the husband's happy about. And on the other hand, you have something which is more enduring, but the Karen, the principle is going to last. So if there would be, according to Rashi, the Gemara doesn't tell you what if you have something which has, one is a Mila, one is more enduring, and the wife would like that the Karen should stay more intact. It shouldn't ruin the Karen. And the other one, on the other hand, is something more profitable. If there be such a case, so then it might be like machlokes, the husband and the wife, to invest in something which is more enduring or which is more profitable. But according to Rashi, the Gemara doesn't go into that case. The Gemara says that all these 4 cases, they're both, it was going to tell you of both items. Let's say the first case, Arobati, a choice of buying land that you grow things on or houses. Which one is a better investment? So Rashi, the Gemara says Ara, the land is a better investment. Rashi says on both counts, that both is more enduring and also is more profitable. According to that pshat, the Gemara is not telling you what to do in a machlokas case. It does tell you that here, either one of them would have a right to say that I want to get the land because the wife could say because it's more enduring, the husband could say because it's more profitable. So according to Rashi, the Gemara didn't open up the case where there's a difference of opinion and one is going to, which one wins. You might say on one hand, the wife said, I want my karka to endure. The Tosfos Rid does learn like that. The Tosfos Rid learns that the land is more enduring, and the houses are more profitable. So it comes out that according to this shot, that the wife has a right to demand that she wanted to invest in something which is more enduring, even though I don't want you to milk out all the profits, and then my principal is going to go down. But according to Rashi, the Gemara doesn't talk about such a case. It just has all 4 cases are going to be telling you that one of the 2 items is both more enduring and more profitable. So therefore, each one has a right to say that's what I want to buy. So if it's a choice of land or houses, land is better. But if you have a choice of buying houses or palm trees, so houses are better. Again, Rashi is going to say that it's more enduring and more profitable. Dikli, but only dikli, if the choice of buying a palm tree or other kind of trees, palm trees are better. Rashi is going to say because it's more enduring and also more profitable. And ilni begufni, if you have a choice of buying trees, other trees besides the dekel and a geffen, a vine, a grapevine, so ilni. The other trees are more profitable or more enduring than the geffen, and therefore either one could be makar. That's what Rashi learns the whole Gemara. So it doesn't get to the issue when there's going to be a machlokas case. But the Tosfos Rid does say that the wife would win if the husband wants to get something which is more profitable but less enduring. The wife has a right to protest that she wants it to be enduring. New Gemara. So this Gemara Rashi now, the Gemara is interesting because usually when it starts off with the word pshita, it means like this goes without saying, but something I have a question about. But that's how the Gemara reads. The Gemara says this is simple and finished. It's simple and nothing, no questions that the Gemara asks. I'm just reading the way Rashi reads the Gemara. The next case is Abba, Zardasa, Uperet the Kavri. The article translated that Abba, Zardasa goes together. But I think Rashi says there are three cases, Abba and Zardasa and Peret the Kavri. Abba means a forest of trees that you cut down the wood, you cut down the trees and then use the wood. And Zardasa, Rashi says, is a kind of, they translated it as a sorb, S-O-R-B. Okay, kind of a, Rashi says on that, Ilano Shelus Rodin, and Rashi says that fruit are not so chashuv, and therefore they use it for fire, they use it for wood. So lumber, so according to ArtScroll, they just translated it as a forest of these kind of trees, which means, okay, either regular trees that you only use for the wood, or even these kind of ones these kind of fruit trees, but they also use it just for the wood. I would have thought Rashi means two different cases. One is a forest of timber, and the other one is this kind of tree, which also is only used for the wood. And Peret the Kavri. Rashi says that this is a fish pond. Kavri is fish, and the pier is going to be the fish pond where you produce fish. In order to, that you have a big pond, and now they call that. That's what they do nowadays. Also, they have fish ponds where they grow the fish, so to speak. Maybe a better word than farm. They farm the fish. And now the question is that considered Karen or is it considered Paris? Means new subject. There wasn't the first couple of lines. The first two lines was about a question which is a more profitable investment. Now we're talking about are these things considered produce or are they considered the principal? Means let's say the case of the fish pond. It comes with a fish pond, and the husband says, okay, I'll take all the fish. And then let's hope that it's going to produce more fish. It means you leave some fish over there, of course, but she says that this is the Karen. This is just that all this is Karen. If you take out the fish, then it doesn't reproduce so fast, and therefore this whole thing is considered the principal. And you don't take the fish out. Or the case of the forest, he has a forest. So he wants to cut down all the lumber, and that's the Paris. She says no, that is the principal. So he says here, Amri la Pera, Amri la Karna. Some say that it's considered Paris, and he's allowed to take it. So of course the Mishnah has the question if she came in with it. We're not going into the Mishnah's case that she came in with four growing on the land. That first initial, is that considered, that was a machlokus of Shimon, of Meir, the Chachamim. But the here subject is all the fish that continuously grow or get born, or the trees that are growing in this forest. Is this considered Paris that he's allowed to take out the trees, take out the fish, or the whole thing is considered the principal? And if you think it doesn't produce, so then let's let him get something else. But don't take all the lumber, don't take all the fish. So some say machlokus, Amri la Pera, Amri la Karna. Some say that's considered produce, the profit, and he wouldn't be allowed to cut down the trees and it'll grow again. And some say it's considered the principal and he's not allowed to. The Gemara seems to sum it up. Plalo the milsa gizo machlef pera and gizo machlef karna. The rule is that if it grows again, gizo machlef would mean, let's say, kind of a tree that after you cut it down, it grows again. And by fish, I guess also that if you take out the fish, it's going to reproduce again. It depends on the trees, depends on the type of fish. Maybe some fish reproduce fast, and even if you would take out a lot of them, they would reproduce. And it's considered that's the business. The business is you take the fish, and there are enough left that they reproduce at a speed that's enough to be continued a Karen. Then, as long as it's reproducing, then it's considered Pera. That's considered the profits, and you're allowed to take it out. The husband will be allowed to take it. And Engiz or Machlat, then the whole thing is considered Karen, and he wouldn't be allowed to take out anything. And if it's not producing, he's saying it's not a productive kind of a principle. So then change it into something else. Make it into something else which could be productive. But you can't just take out all the profits because then you're ruining the Karen. You're ruining the principle.
It takes 20 years to grow back the tree.
Why can't you take some of the trees? And then, you know how they do, that's how they do forests nowadays. They do.
But that would be when you have so many forests and you're able to, but if you have, she has one farm, whatever it is, 1 acre of forest, you cut it down, and they're not going to keep it for 20 years. So maybe that's considered like Engiz or Machlat. Maybe it's not producing enough, fast enough that it should be considered profit. The whole thing is considered Karen. And maybe sell the whole thing and buy something else, which you could gain profits from. Nu Gemara, Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Shaya, Amar Rabbi Anai. Rab Zera instead of the name of Rab Hoshaya, instead of the name of Rab Yanai. Others have a different girsa. Amrilo, Amr Rab Abba, Amr Rab Hoshaya, Amr Rab Yanai. Everybody has Rab Hoshaya, the name of Rab Yanai. The question is, Rab Zera said it, Rab Abba said it. What did he say? Agonev, you turn the page, Agonev, Vlad Behemas Mulug. Mishalim Tashlum Kefelisha. So the words, Behemas Mulug means an animal that the woman brought in as her property. She brought into the marriage an animal, and it had a child, Vlad. It had a offspring. So what would he say? I would have thought that the behema is her Karen, that's the principle, and the Vlad is already considered the next is the Paris, and he has the right to get the Vlad.
Yeah.
Here it says that let's say somebody stole it. Somebody stole that Vlad. What's the thing if somebody steals? So he has to give it back, of course. And if he's a Ganav, so then he has to pay. If he's not a Gazlan, he's a Ganav, so then he has to pay double. So now that's what happened. Someone stole it, and they found him, and he has to pay kefil. So who does the double go to? This is a profit now. The fact that they had one animal, but now the Ganav is going to have to pay double. So who gets that? Here it says the woman gets it. The woman gets, and that's a very big question, because if the Vlad belonged to him, so why should she get the profit? That's considered his. But the Gemara says, first the Gemara talks about, is that considered the Vlad, the offspring of that animal, is that considered Karen, or is that considered Paris? And we would say, surely it's what's considered Paris. I think we would say so. The Gemara is going to say everybody else like that. So the Gemara jumps up. Come on, look at Hananya. This opinion that says it goes to the woman, that seems to say, the Gemara thought that it's saying that even the Vlad itself, the Vlad belongs to the woman, the child belongs to the woman. That's against Rabbanan and Hananya. Where do you find Rabbanan and Hananya? The Tanya, Vlad be'emas mulud lebal. The Brisa says that the offspring of an animal that belongs to the woman goes to the husband. That's considered the Paris. That's considered the profit. So really, that's the end of the kasha already. The kasha is that you're saying that it goes to the woman. Here, everybody holds that the animal is considered the husband's. The Brisa finishes off, and we're going to talk about the rest of the Brisa also. But just for this kasha alone, these three words would have been enough. That's the kasha. It's against the first statement that said that kefil goes to the woman. The Brisa continues. How about it's not an animal, but the woman came in with a maidservant and she had a child. The maidservant is the property. A Goyish maidservant means not a Shifcha Kanan, it's not a Jewish maidservant. So the owner owns the Shifcha, and she had a child. So we would think that the Shifcha is considered the principal, and the child now we became an Eved. Now there's an Eved. She gave birth to an Eved Knani. So who owns that? Like it says in the pasuk that it should be the child also belongs to the owner. So we would say also that should be considered profit. That's not the principle. Here it says that the Tanna Kama says Leisha. That's considered the principle. He says that the child of a maidservant has the same halach as the child of an animal, and it's also considered profit, and it goes to the husband. So just to sum up the Brisa so far, it said everybody agrees that the offspring of an animal is considered profit and it goes to the husband. And there's a machlokas about the offspring of a woman, a child of a shifcha, if it's considered principal or profit. But we'll come back to the shifcha soon. All we want now is the animal. Everyone holds that the animal's child is considered profit and it goes to the husband. So how come before on top line it was quoted as saying, I forgot who said that over here, the bottom of the page, who said that? That was over. We said either Abzero or Baba in the name of Abusha. Rabbi said so. He said that the woman gets the kefil. So why should that be? The animal belongs to the husband. The Gemara answers, "Afilu teva divriyakol, pera tekin le'Rabbanan, pera de pera lo tekin le'Rabbanan." The takana is that the husband gets the profits, but not the profits of the profits. So of course, Taisus explains that if the child, which belongs to the husband, is going to have a child, next generation, of course it goes to the husband. That's his. The child is his, and therefore the next generation is surely his. That's not a question. But the Gemara means that here there's a profit that's coming from an outside source. Taisus calls it that it comes from alma. Where's the Taisus? Over here, pera de pera. Dafka b'midi the asime alma kigon kefil. Aval pshita the pera nami tekin le'Rabbanan. There's no question that the next generation of profit surely goes to the husband also. But the issue was over here that it comes from alma. That it comes from outside. It means that the kefil is like an outside profit. It's like a windfall that came for the fact that she owns that is an animal over here. It's not considered a direct product of the animal. So therefore, the takana that the Chachamim said that the peiros go to the husband. That's only that pre, but not the pre of the pre. Here he's only going to get it mitzvah the takana of the pre of the pre. That he doesn't get. Once it's something that he already owns already, so then that does belong to him also. That Taisa says it has to do with the Gemara later on. We'll see in a couple of days a different Gemara. So this Asuk is really over. It started about Vlad Vemas Maluk. So the Gemara explains, of course, the Vlad itself belongs to the husband. But if it has to do with generating Kefel, so then that goes to the woman. In between, we brought this thing about the Shifcha. Now the Gemara is going to open up the subject of the Shifcha. I put in parentheses just to show that going back to that case before, it's not really parentheses because it's a main sugi now as much as a sugi before. Now we're going into the subject, the child of a maidservant of the woman. Who does that go to? So Be'er Machlokes. Tanakama said it goes to the woman, and Hanani said it goes to the husband. And now the Gemara is going to open up that and say what the Machlokes is about. Ishlam al-Hanania, Hainu, the lo chayshinan lemisa. El Rabbanan, so the Gemara says that the reason of Hanani, why is it considered prophet? Why is the child of the animal, of the Shifcha, considered, I'm sorry, the Shifcha, according to Hanani, is no difference to Shifcha or the animal. Both of them, the child is considered prophet. And the Gemara says, you know why? Lo chashin lamisa. You don't pay attention to the death of the parent. That means the animal that she brought in, or the maidservant that she brought in, we don't look at it as if eventually she's going to die, and therefore the Karen's going to be lost. And that's what the Gemara is making a factor over here, that in order to look at something as a principle and a profit, the principle has to remain. If the principle is going to get finished up, so then we don't look at, then we look at the peri as the profit still as part of the Karen. If the Karen's not going to be gone, if the principle is going to be gone, that's not a good principle. So Hanani doesn't consider the fact that the woman is eventually going to die and the animal is eventually going to die. So then how could you say that the child is considered a prophet? That's the Karen. So no, lo chashin lamisa. You don't look at the fact that one day they're going to die, even though everything eventually dies in this world. But we don't look at that, and therefore it doesn't mean the chashin. It doesn't mean if we worry about it. It means that you don't consider it. We don't look at that point, and therefore the child is considered prophet. El Rabbanan. What's the reason of the Rabbanan? The Rabbanan differentiate between an animal and a maidservant. What's the difference? Lo. If you are concerning the death of the, so then by the animal, we should say that the animal is going to die eventually, and there's no Karen left. The Karen's going to get finished up, it's going to die, and therefore you should consider the Vlad still the Karen. So how come he says that that's considered prophet? If they don't consider the death, so then I feel of Vlad, even the child of the maidservant also should be considered prophet, because you're not concerned with the fact that the mother's eventually going to die. So what's Chandra Rabbanan? The Gemara answers, Lo lam chayshi lamisa. The machlokes is not, that's really the machlokes. That according to Hanani, you don't consider the fact that parents are going to die, not the animal, not the maidservant. Therefore, the child of both of them is considered prophet. The Rabbanan say that we do consider the fact that the parent's going to die, and therefore that's a reason to consider the child the Karen, because the Karen itself is not going to be here. You have to make the Karen to last. So therefore, the child is going to be considered the Karen, but that's only by the Shifcha, because when the Shifcha dies, there's no Karen left. But when the animal dies, there is something left over, at least the hides, the skins, the hide is still usable. So therefore, even after it dies, there still is a remnant that's left over from the Karen. So therefore, that's called that the Karen remains. Of course, it's only a small percentage of the animal, but something remains. That's enough to consider that the Karen remains, and therefore the child could be considered prophet. So the Gemara was successful in explaining the machlokes between Hanania and the Rabbanan. It comes out new yesod, that in order for something to be considered prophet, the Karen has to remain.
And so it explains the fish case and the tree case.
Oh, very
also.
nice. So by the case over there, what are we going to say? That if over there the Karen is the Karen, you look at the Karen over there, that the generation of fish that produces is going to get finished. So there's no more Karen. So therefore you say the whole thing is Karen. And if you would say that it is able to regenerate, okay, if it regenerates still, so then the Karen is still left and it's still producing.
Same like the behemoth. The behemoth makes it one behemoth, that behemoth makes another, so it depends.
As long as it's able to regenerate, then there's still some Karen left. If the Karen is going to stop producing, so then there's no more Karens. So in this case, you had the machlokes just now. Are you concerned with the Misa? And then after Mina was about the Vlad Shifcha. So a person like Hanania that you don't concern with the Misa, and therefore the child of the Shifcha is also considered prophet. Even though that's true, a person like Hanania, that child is considered prophet and therefore goes to the husband. Again, what we're talking about, the child of a maidservant. The woman brought in a maidservant, and she had a child, and now the husband takes the child. It's considered his Ebed. But he does agree that if they divorce, and now she wants her Ebed back, she wants the child back, it's not hers, it's his. But she could pay for it and take it. Means even though he wants to keep the Evet, she says, I want the Evet, so she has to pay for it, but she has a right to pay for it and take it. Why is that? It's really his. That's going to be a concept coming up soon in the Mishnah. That means the prestige of her family. That things like that, like an Eved, a Shifcha, these things that belong to the family, it's in the family. So she has a right to keep it in the family. So as long as she's married, so the husband takes. But if she gets divorced, she wants to go back with that Eved. So she has a right to force him to sell it back. Not that she has a right to take it stam, it belongs to him, but she could force him to take it back. We have the same concept in Yavamis. I think over there spoke about Nifsei Tzon Barzel, that there's a case where the woman brings in property to the marriage in a way that the husband obligates himself a set price, whatever it's worth now, he's going to pay for it. And it's not like all these Nifsei Malug that if it goes up, if it goes down, it belongs to the woman and she gains or loses. But over there, there's a kind of a property she brings in Nifsei Tzon Barzel. Over there, the Gemara said, even though it belongs to him, and they just has to pay her for the value when they get divorced. But if it's something that they would have prestige in having that item back, if it's still around, she has the right to buy it back. That's the same concept over here, that in order to keep the prestige of the family, something like an heirloom, something like that, that they want to have in the family, so then she has the right to buy it back. New Gemara, Amar Rava, Amar Rav Nachman, Chnisa lo eiz lechelba, rochel legizasa, tanagolos lebitzasa, dekel leperosa, ochel v'holech chetech lakeren. So Rashi's pshat over here, this might be a machlokus here, Rishonim, but Rashi learns that all these things is that she really owns the goat. Here, the words are, she brought in a goat for its milk, a sheep for its shearings, the wool, chicken for its egg, palm tree for its fruit, for the dates. So Rashi learns that she brought in the goat, she owns the goat. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like she only has the rights of the goat for the milk. But Rashi doesn't mean that. She owns the goat, which is used for milk. She brought in a sheep, which is used for wool. She brought in a chicken, which is used for eggs. And she brought in the palm tree, which is used for its dates. All these cases, he's allowed to milk it. The milk goes to him. The shearings go to him. The eggs go to him. The dates go to him. As long as the thing is alive, the aiz, the goat, and the sheep, and the chicken, and the palm tree, that's considered the keren, and he's allowed to take all the profits. Is there any chiddush in that? According to the Rashi's pshat, it's a little difficult what the chiddush is. There's not so much chiddush over here. Of course, the animal is going to die eventually. That we said already. Like everyone agrees that the fact the animal is going to die, either because you don't concern yourself with the death, even according to the Rabbanan that you do, but the skin is going to be left, the hides are going to be left. So there's not too much chiddush in the way Rashi explains the Gemara, and the Mefarshim talk about it. There's a different way to learn the Gemara. The Ref and the Rambam, they seem to learn that she didn't own the goat in the first place. She only owned the right to milk the goat. The goat belongs to somebody else. So then the Gemara is more difficult, that if she doesn't own the goat at all, she just owns the milking rights. So how could the husband take that? That's the keren. So they do seem to pass like Rashi, that the case of the Gemara is that she owns the goat and he has the right to milk it, and there's not too much chiddush in that. And that's the question on Rashi, but that's the simple pshat, the simple reading of the Gemara with Rashi's pshat.
Ochel here is the husband, right?
Understand? Also, right. The husband eats the profits until as long as it could produce. The goat, as long as it's alive and it's producing those, so he gets it. And the sheep, the goat belongs to her, which doesn't seem to be much chiddush. The Gemara continues. Amar of Nachman, I will make lima. She brought in a shirt, a piece of clothing. Does that produce anything? So it says here that wearing it is considered the use of it, and is any keren left? Pei'rahavi, it's considered peiros, means he's allowed to benefit from the use of the shirt. He's allowed to continue wearing it until it's not usable anymore. So where's the keren? There was a problem before that if it doesn't have anything left of the keren, so then it's not considered. Then you can't say that's only peiros, taking the whole keren away. Rashi says that the leftover, the rags that are left of the garment, that's also something. Same way the hide was something that was left over. Here also the rags, you'll use it as a rag afterwards. So that's considered that it doesn't get used up, and therefore the use of the garment is considered the period. He's allowed to use it. But the Gemara says this is a machlokus. Timan Ki'aitana. Who does Rav Nachman hold like? The following Tana. The Gemara is going to bring a brayso with a machlokus and say who Rav Nachman paskin like. Hamelach v'achol. Hareza peres. If she owns a salt, what do you call it? I'm not sure what the name would be. A place where you could get salt. Not a mine. I'm not sure if the case of a salt mine or it's a case where the water gets evaporated and you get sea salt by you make a place where the water runs into and then it evaporates, a shallow place, it evaporates, you get the salt and more water comes in. So that always produces. So if she brought in such a case, so he's allowed to take the salt, also whole. It says here about sand also, she has a place where they take out sand from, and it's always producing. How does it always produce sand? So Machabusa said that usually the place that have sand is because there's a certain, the currents of the water are bringing the sand because there's a granite or someplace else which gets eroded and it washes up the sand onto the shore. So it's always going to be producing, even if you take out sand from the beach, more sand is going to come. So therefore, he's allowed to take that, and the Karen remains. It's always able to produce more. But Pir shel Gofris and a Machbor shel Tzrif, but Me'om Karen and V'chamom Peres. Here is a place where they take out sulfur from, a sulfur field or mine, whatever it's called, and also Tzrif. Rashi says Tzrif is alum, A-L-U-M, and also a place where you mine alum from. So a kind of mineral. So then it does get finished. After you finish taking out whatever's there, there's no more left. So is that considered Peri or Karen, or Me'om Karen? And therefore, since it eventually gets finished up, so therefore, it's considered Karen, and he cannot use it. If anything, sell the whole thing and buy something which can generate profit. The Chacham say it's considered Peros because there is something left at the end. What's left at the end? She has the land over there, the land, the pit where they took out, that alone is left. But it's, therefore that makes that everything else is considered Peros, even though the real thing is not left anymore. The real thing was a sulfur mine, and now no more sulfur. So what is it? It's a piece of land. But that's not really the thing that was produced. The Chachamim say that's enough. The fact that something is left over there, it's enough to consider the rest of it Peres. They point out that that's so the Mefarshim that they point to Beis Yosef that this seems to be taken aside before we spoke about the fish pond and the forest. Over there also, even after the forest is cut down, the land is there. If you say that here, the pit of Gofris, of sulfur, is considered that according to the Chachamim, that something is there, that it's considered Peres because the pit is still there, the land is still. So, but a fish pond also, the fish pond, the pond is still there. You have the land and you have the water. They have no fish. Okay, but something's left. If that's good enough to be considered Peres, according to the Chachamim, so that's taking an opinion in the Gemara before that the forest also will be considered Peres. He'd be allowed to cut it down. Before the Gemara said Amri la Karen, Amri la Peri. The Gemara said too stubborn before. So the Beis Yosef says that this is dependent on this machlokes. And here the Gemara says that here also the fact that the shchakim are left, the little of the rags are left out of the shirt. That's like the chachamim that you can say that the fact that the rags are left, that's enough to be considered. Also the Gemara before about the hides, that also might over there. It's not we don't need the hides over there because you're passing like Hanania that we don't consider the death of the mother. So therefore the Karen is still there. But if you have to come on to something like a little bit is left still usable, is that enough? It seems to be machlokas over here and has ramifications on the Gemara before about the fish pond and the forest. That it'll be considered Paris even if the fish get used up because the pond is still there. The Gemara, the next thing in the Mishnah, we spoke about this, that this is talking about when the Paris of Mechubam Karka, the marriage, she came into the marriage with tefua that's growing on the ground. Is that considered Paris or not? Rabbi Meir says it's considered Karka. The Rabbanan said it's considered Paris. Rabbi Shimon said it's considered Paris, but and the husband gets it, but he says that on the way out, if he divorces her, so then she gets it. And the Gemara asks, Rabbi Shimon and Tanakama, both of them say the same thing, that the Paris Amachubam Karka is considered.
I thought you said it was on the ground, or did you say it was?
Right, it's attached to the ground. The wheat which is attached to the ground. And both of them seem to say that it's considered Paris and the husband gets it. So what's the machlokis? About the way out. The Rabbanan didn't talk about the way out. They just said on the way in, it goes to the husband. And they're going to hold on the way out also goes to the husband because they consider it Paris. But Reb Shimon says that it goes to the wife on the way out and doesn't say why. Mike before explained the reason is because it doesn't have any identity yet. It's not yet ripe and you can't use it. So Reb Shimon says, ignore it. Right now, you don't see it. So on the way in, the wife cannot say it's mine because it doesn't exist yet. It doesn't have an identity. And eventually when it grows, then it's the husband's. It grew it and now it produced. And so on the way out, the husband can't take it because it's not yet here. It's not here. It has no identity. So when the husband divorces the wife, he can't take this. When it grows, it's growing now by the wife and she gets it. Next Mishnah, a small sugya. Naflu La Avadim with Shvachos Canaan. In her Yerusha, the thing that changed brought into the marriage was slaves. Avadim, Shvachos, but they were old and they're not producing so much anymore. So also it's not a kind of a capital which is producing. So therefore, sell it for something which could produce. So you buy karka, and then he'll get the profits. He doesn't have a right to force her to sell it because we said this for a few minutes ago. The prestige of her family, that avodim and shvachos, even these are things that people want to keep in the family, and even though they're old, could be that they already have children and the whole family of avodim and shvachos, they want to keep that their avodim should be still in the family. So therefore, he has no right to make her sell it, even though it's not producing too much. It's worth something. If it wouldn't be anything, we wouldn't be able to sell it. No one would buy it. So it is worth something, but it's not so profitable. So Reb Shimon Gamliel says you can't force it. Yes, please.
An emotional thing that they've been in the family for so long, or is it also just that since they've been in the family, they know how to run the household, and like you don't have to retrain them; they already know things, how to do things.
Right. It sounds like Shevach. Sounds like the prestige. It's like you're saying emotional that they want. Either Rashi later on says at the end of the page that it's considered a covered for them. It's a covered for the family, even without that fact.
Working for 40 years, maybe in the family.
Yeah, so it could be that's emotional, sentimental, emotional. This is that they know each other, they know them, and they want them to be. They don't want to sell them just for the money they're going to get out of it. So that's the point that Shevach plays. We said before also. What did we say a few minutes ago? That if the shivcha gave birth to Eved, even though it goes to the husband, but she has the right to buy it back if she gets divorced. And that's the same story over here, that she has a right that the husband cannot sell them because he wants it to be in the family still. Another case, old olive trees or old grapevine, also it's not producing too much. And he says not enough profit, it's not producing. We could sell it and get something more profitable. He has a right to sell it in order to get something which can generate profits. Also the same thing is already a sentimental attachment. They don't want to sell their olive trees. They've been in the family for a long time and the vine. So therefore, he can't force her to sell it there. She can keep it, even though it's not so profitable.
And that could also be for the beauty on the landscape, right? Like an old olive tree. It's 100 years old, and why we don't want to sell it. We like that it looks so regal in our land, even if it doesn't produce olives.
Could be. Mike, what do you say?
Here Sheva Beit Avi is a big deal. Before it was like not such a big thing that because of Sheva Beit Avi, she could give the husband money
And
he'll
buy
give
it.
her the thing.
Right.
Here, he's not getting it at all. Sheva
Right,
Beit Avi
right,
is
right.
causing her to own.
Right,
It seems
right.
like a concept Sheva Beit Avi, and not a real thing. And more like a
But it's enough of a reason that she has a right that
To keep
even though it always belongs to her. All these things belong to her. But the question is that he could generate profit. Here he's being held back from generating profits, and he's saying here it's more of an issue. Before it was only a question about getting the thing or getting the money, but here he's being held back from getting profits because of this sentimental reason. It sounds like you're right. That here,
old people are going to die soon.
yeah, but as long as they're right, they're right. Yeah, it wouldn't be worth too much either. How much they're going to sell it
Right,
for?
that's also
But
true.
right, and now the Gemara is going to go into a factor of how much prestige there is over here. He seems to be talking about how much prestige is there. So it depends if the trees, we're going to say for the trees, the olive trees and the grapevine, is it in her field or is it in somebody else's field? She has a olive tree in somebody else's field. So everybody holds that there isn't so much Sheva Beis Avi because eventually when it's going to die, it's finished. The word Kali Karna means that the principle is going to finish off. Rashi says the point is that it's not so much prestige over here. It's coming to an end soon. So therefore, he has a right to sell. He has a right to make her sell it because there isn't so much prestige. But the Gemara said that doesn't make sense. The Reisha talked about the slaves and the maidservants. Over there, it's like independent. It doesn't have anything to do with being in her field, and that means that even when it's not in her field, the thing alone is enough to be considered Sheva Beis Avi, and she has a right to keep it. So too, the olive trees and the vines that are in somebody else's field, she also should have, even though it's going to get finished soon, as long as it's there, she wants it, then it's considered sentimental, and whatever the shot is, and regal, and she's allowed to hold on to it. So how could you say that if the tree is in somebody else's field, she has no right to keep it? So the Gemara says, you're right, there must have been a mistake, a misquote. The real way to quote it is the following. The the contrary, that the slaves is not in her field, so to speak, and the trees that are not in her field, that's what is a machlokes. But if it would be, the trees would be in her field, everybody holds that the Shevach Beis Aviyah is a factor, and even the Tanakama, who doesn't say Shevach Beis Aviyah, we had in Mishnah, Tanakama didn't look, if they look in the Mishnah, it looks like they don't consider it a factor at all. Sell it, it's not worth money now, so sell it, that'll make profits. But Shimon Gamliel says, take the sentiment into consideration. Now the Gemara is saying Tanakam also agrees to that. Just depends how much. That the regular case where it's not in her field, or the slaves are gonna not in her field, and therefore it's gonna die soon, and it's gonna be finished. So that's not such a big factor. But in the case where there is a lot of Shevach Beis Aviyah that these trees are growing in her estate, so then everyone will agree that she has a right to hold on to it, and even Tanakam will say that not to sell it. Yashikoach, that's the daf for today. And Bez Hashem will be doing Matzah Shabbos,
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. And
Yeah.
please let Chaim David know.
Also,
8
also at
o'clock.
the yeshiva.
Also in the
Yeah.
yeshiva, right? In the
8
yeshiva.
o'clock,
And then Sunday morning will be a Menachem Tzion at 11 o'clock.
Great.
And we'll try to figure out if there's a possibility for Wi-Fi Zoom over there. Yashikoach, everybody. Thank you. Have a good Shabbos.
On a hot
What, please?
spot.